Warning! This episode of Data and Dissonance dives into breaking news. The indictments of former FBI Director James Comey. The charges are real, the stakes are high, and the commentary will be unfiltered. We'll explore the facts, the politics, and the possible fallout from every angle. Conservative, independent, conspiracy, and progressive. As always, this show is about speaking truth and stirring thought, not sugarcoating. Listener discretion advised. Strong opinions and strong coffee ahead.
Welcome back to Data and Dissonance, where we don't sip tea. We spill the whole damn pot. And tonight, it's steaming hot. Former FBI Director James Comey, the guy who strutted around like America's hall monitor, just got slapped with indictments. Lying to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. 2 felony counts. The same man who said no one is above the law? Well, now he gets to test that theory in court. The media is already playing their favorite game. Half screaming witch hunt, half saying finally. And as usual, the truth is hiding somewhere in between the spin cycles. But lucky for you, that's why we're here. Now, I could talk all night, but this crew was built for moments like this. And they're itching to unload. So let's get them in here. All right, folks, let's kick the tires and light the fires. Because if there's one thing juicier than Comey finally catching charges, it's what this crew has to say about it. First up, Brian. He's like a political blowtorch. Point him at the swamp and watch it melt. Half the time, he sounds like a Trump rally on Red Bull. The other half, he's just screaming at CNN through his TV. Brian, welcome back to the fight. Then we've got Rachel. She's the balance beam in this circus. One foot on facts, the other kicking through media spin. She's not MAGA. She's not progressive. And somehow that makes everyone mad at her at least once per episode. Good to see you, Rachel. Next is Daniel, the man with a conspiracy board that looks like it belongs in a crime thriller. If there's a shadowy cabal running things, you can bet he's already mapped it out with yarn and pushpins. Daniel, try not to red string the whole studio tonight. And last but never least, Skylar. Our resident progressive who thinks the Green New Deal is just common sense and that billionaires should be paying for everyone's therapy. She's here to keep us grounded in feelings, fairness, and fighting the system. Glad you're here, Sky. And me? I've been a hard-nosed conservative for 32 years, and I'm telling you right now, Comey's fall from grace is about more than one man. It's about whether justice still applies at the top. Let's dig in. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Caleb Rourke Thriller series, the Covenant Protocol, and the Prophet Directive, plus our Data and Dissonance coffee lineup. High Lakes, Light, Rock Creek, Medium, and Bitterroot, Dark. Roasted in the USA, available ground or whole bean. All right, let's roll up our sleeves and break down the Comey indictments. For those just tuning in, here's the gist. 2 felony charges, making false statements to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. All tied to his 2020 testimony about whether he authorized an anonymous source feeding information to the media. One more proposed charge didn't make it past the grand jury, but still. The man who turned FBI press leaks into a cottage industry now gets to explain himself in court. So let's do what we do best. 3 questions straight down the line. No softball nonsense, no cable news spin. Brian, you're up first. Does this indictment finally show accountability for the FBI brass, or is this just political theater?
Accountability, plain and simple. Comey played God for years, leaking, lying, and weaponizing the Bureau against Trump. Now he's on the receiving end. Call it karma, call it justice, I don't care. If you lie to Congress, you should get cuffed like anyone else. It's about time one of these deep state clowns had to hire a defense attorney instead of writing another memoir.
Damn, Brian. You sound like you've already got him sentenced to hard labor. What's next? You want him breaking rocks in an orange jumpsuit outside Mar-a-Lago? I mean, honestly, if karma's real, Hillary should probably be selling hot dogs in Times Square right now.
I'm not celebrating yet. Yes, lying to Congress is serious, but I want to see the evidence. The indictment is 2 pages long. That's thinner than a CNN fact check. If the DOJ can't show Comey knowingly authorized something he denied under oath, this could fizzle out fast. We've all seen flimsy cases crash and burn before.
Fair enough, Rachel. But admit it. Wouldn't it be poetic if the man who leaked memos to get a special counsel ends up begging for a plea deal? That's what we call Comey karma.
This isn't just about Comey. This is about the shadow government. You can't tell me leaks that perfectly align with CNN's 6 o'clock hour are just coincidence. If Discovery Force's email dumps, we might finally see the spider web. Who passed what to whom? Which reporters were in the loop? That's the real story here. Comey is just the first domino.
Daniel, your corkboard must look like a murder mystery right now. I bet you've got red yarn stretched from Comey to Anderson Cooper's hair gel. Don't lie.
This is political theater, full stop. Trump leaned on DOJ, they delivered charges, period. If we normalize indicting former officials for contested testimony, every new administration will just prosecute the last one. That's not accountability. That's banana republic nonsense. The real reform should be structural, not revenge trials.
Skylar, I get it. But banana republic nonsense. Come on, if we're doing fruit analogies, this one feels more like rotten apples in the FBI barrel. And besides, if Comey's guilty, maybe the man should get community service teaching honesty classes to toddlers. At least then, he'd be surrounded by people more trustworthy than Congress. Brian, how strong is the government's case, really? Is this airtight or another political dud?
If the prosecutors have the receipts, emails, texts, directives, it's airtight. Comey's ego got him sloppy. He wanted to look like the noble whistleblower while being the puppet master. The jury won't care about politics if the paper trail shows intent, and if they don't have receipts, well, then we've just wasted time again.
Brian's ready to turn this into an episode of Law & Order, Deep State Unit. Done. Special Agent Comey, you're under arrest for excessive smugness in the first degree.
I don't think it's airtight. It's circumstantial at best right now. Without direct proof that Comey authorized the leak, it's his word versus a grand jury's guesswork. Juries don't like guesswork. They like emails that say, yeah, I told Bob to call the New York Times. If that's not there, the case limps.
Rachel's right. If the smoking gun turns out to be a half-burnt memo written on a napkin, this trial might end faster than a Biden press conference.
Look deeper. The case is intentionally narrow, but it could pry open the vault. Even if prosecutors don't get a conviction, the discovery phase could expose years of media collusion. Sometimes the point of the case isn't conviction, it's exposure.
Daniel, if this ends with us learning Wolf Blitzer was on an FBI group chat, I'm buying you a steak dinner. Hell, I'll even get you a corkboard made of mahogany.
The case is weak. It's 2 pages, 2 counts. That's not a case built to win. That's a case built to scare. If this collapses in court, it'll be proof Trump's DOJ weaponized justice for headlines. And guess what? The public loses faith either way.
Skylar, you keep calling it weak. But remember, OJ walked on a murder trial, so weak cases can still blow up the world. At least Comey doesn't have a glove problem. Unless it's one of those tiny leather driving gloves he wore to look important. Brian, what's the bigger impact here? On the FBI, on politics, or on public trust?
The FBI. They've been exposed as political hacks for years, and this cements it. If the director can face charges for lying, it proves the rot at the top. Maybe now Americans will demand a full purge and rebuild of the Bureau.
Purge the FBI, huh? Careful, Brian. You just gave Netflix their next dystopian series. Season 1, Comey's Courtroom. Season 2, Mueller's Memoirs.
Public trust. Once again, people see a supposedly untouchable official on trial, and it fuels cynicism. Even if he's acquitted, the damage is done. Trust in institutions is at rock bottom, and this drags it lower.
Rachel, you're not wrong. At this rate, the FBI could release a cure for cancer, and half the country would ask if it was Russian disinformation.
Politics. Because whether he's guilty or not, both sides will weaponize the outcome. If he's convicted, MAGA says, see, deep state guilty. If he's acquitted, the left screams, see, witch hunt. Either way, the circus keeps feeding itself.
Daniel, you nailed it. It's like pro wrestling. Scripted chaos with real bruises. Except in this ring, everyone's wearing bad suits and lying under oath.
The bigger impact is precedent. If this stands, every new president will push DOJ to indict their enemies. That's not a democracy. That's a slow-motion collapse. Public trust won't survive endless payback cycles.
Skylar's painting doom and gloom again. But hey, if America collapses, at least we'll all finally agree on one thing. The DMV line was the least of our problems. So there you have it. Accountability or payback, airtight or flimsy, reform or collapse. The Comey case is either the start of something bigger or just another brick on the road to distrust. Either way, we'll be here with receipts, rants, and enough sarcasm to choke a CNN anchor. All right, crew, we've chased this thing from every angle tonight. The charges, the evidence, the politics, the fallout. But before we close the book on this one, it's time for final thoughts. Big picture, straight from the gut. No interruptions, no filter. Brian, fire it up.
Here's my bottom line. James Comey spent years putting himself above the law while using the FBI as a political weapon. He leaked, he lied, and he strutted around like he was untouchable. Now he's finally staring down 2 felony counts. And even if the charges are just the tip of the iceberg, it matters. It tells Americans that even the so-called elites aren't immune from accountability. Sure, the media will spin it, the Democrats will cry revenge, and the swamp will circle the wagons. But the fact is, Comey in a courtroom is justice served cold. And that's the only dish these people ever deserve.
Cold, huh? More like freezer-burned leftovers from 2016 finally being reheated. Hope Comey likes his justice microwaved.
What worries me isn't just Comey's fate. It's the system's credibility. If the DOJ built this case on strong evidence, then let's see it and let's judge it fairly. But if this collapses, if it looks rushed or politically pressured, then public trust craters even further. And that matters more than whether James Comey spends time in prison or not. Because every time Americans lose faith in institutions, it widens the cracks in our democracy. Justice isn't about scoring partisan points. It's about proving that truth still matters, even when it's inconvenient.
Rachel, always the grown-up in the room. Meanwhile, Brian's in the corner planning which prison jumpsuit color looks best on Comey.
The indictments are important, but the bigger story is what could spill out during discovery. If emails, memos, or texts show the media pipeline between the FBI and their favorite outlets, then this case goes from being about Comey to being about an entire shadow communication system that shaped narratives for years. That's the thread I'll be watching. Because whether he's convicted or acquitted, the documents could tell us more about how power really moves behind the scenes than any trial verdict ever could. And that's the truth they don't want sunlight on.
Daniel, if this trial drops CNN group chats into evidence, I swear I'll buy you a corkboard so fancy it comes with bottle service.
This case is less about James Comey and more about the precedent it sets. If we start prosecuting former officials every time testimony is contested, we're setting the stage for endless partisan prosecutions. That's not justice, that's escalation. If we want accountability, we need structural reforms, clear rules for government transparency, stronger protections for whistleblowers, and real firewalls between politics and prosecutions. Otherwise, we're just building another cycle of payback that will break whatever's left of public trust in the system.
Skylar, I get it. You're worried about the slippery slope. But honestly, after the last decade, I think the slope's less slippery and more like a water slide straight into a septic tank. Here's where I land after all this. James Comey being indicted isn't just about one man. It's about whether the FBI, the DOJ, and the so-called guardians of justice are finally being held to the same rules as the rest of us. If he lied under oath, prove it and convict him. If the case is weak, then shame on DOJ for weaponizing headlines instead of justice. Either way, the damage is done. Americans already don't trust their institutions, and this trial will either confirm that cynicism or crack it wide open. At the end of the day, justice has to be more than a slogan. It has to be applied evenly, consistently, and without fear or favor. That's what makes a republic strong. Tonight we laughed, we argued, we roasted, but the through line is simple. The truth still matters. And if it doesn't, then we've already lost more than one FBI director can fix. That's our show. Thanks for riding with us on this Monday edition of Data and Dissonance. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. sharp with more truth, more fire, and more laughs at the expense of the swamp. Until then, remember to speak truth, stir thought.